Hey, Damo here. Hope you're all doing well. There's been quite a lot going on in the room since a couple of weeks ago when I last did a video. And I don't know, I've got all the mics up around the kit, started tracking the new All Hail Dog EP, done some vocals as well with Armandine, sounding pretty excellent. In advance of doing drum recordings, obviously you dig out your fine china, right? And I went into my cymbal bag to pull out my nice cymbals and found one that had that I thought was in perfect condition, that had an inch-long crack in it. Don't know where it came from, maybe in transit, or I just hadn't noticed it last time. But had to do a bit of a repair job, and so I thought, well, I'd talk about cymbals. I don't think people often talk about cymbals online. I don't know, maybe I'm just missing it, but I don't see much about it, and there's a lot to say. Cymbals are, in my opinion, the most important aspect of a drum kit. Contentious, people might argue. People often like to talk about their drums, lovely, you know, whatever, wood and finish and all the sound, but reality is that in this day and age, particularly if you're doing rock music and heavy rock music, your drums, there's going to be a degree at least of sample replacement on the drums. Snares very rarely make it 100% through into recordings. Kick drums rarely make it 100% through into recordings. But cymbals do. The thing that makes a drum recording that much better than a sequenced recording. Obviously, these days a lot of people are doing fully sequenced backings for their, you know, maybe they're guitarists and singers and so on. You don't need a drummer. But the thing that makes it that much better is when you have a full recording. And one thing you can be sure of is that the cymbals that you play are going to make it through. It's the room sounds, you know, your ambient mics around the room that give that extra depth to the sound, and cymbals are super important for that. And I don't know, I have a few, not rules, but things I follow with cymbals. They're really expensive. Cymbals are so expensive, and if you've got a nice set of cymbals, you have probably spent quite a bit of money on it. So it's worth looking after them. And so there's a few things I follow. People often come up to me after gigs and they're curious about my cymbals. You'll see why in a minute, because they have a certain sort of look to them, the way that I repair them and look after them. I'll show you some of my cymbals shortly. But yeah, I don't know. The first thing I think is always get good cymbals. It's easy to say, and it's always tempting to just buy cheaper stuff. And there's, at the moment, I've seen quite a lot. It comes up on my feed on, you know, whatever, Facebook and everything else. I don't know, what's that company, Temu or something, and others are selling these cymbals, probably coming from Asia, and they're really cheap. I've seen quite high profile drum YouTubers and so on talking about cymbals and buying these cymbals, and I just think, don't do it. Buy good cymbals, because good cymbals last. And the other thing is that cheap cymbals, cymbals that are probably brass, so these cheap ones usually are just pure brass, and even the kind of B8, I don't know, without getting geeky about it, the like nice cymbals, it's bronze alloy, and you have a ratio of tin and copper. And I think, as I understand it, the more tin you get into the cymbal, into the alloy, the brighter the sound, the nicer the sound, maybe. But the more tin you put into the alloy, the harder it is to work. So expensive cymbals, the kind of double A's and, you know, whatever top ranges that Zildjian have and so on, are heavily worked. They're more expensive because it takes that much longer to hammer and work them with a higher amount of tin. I think I'm right in saying that. But it is so worth doing it, because the cheap brass cymbals and the lower tin cymbals, when you play them, I think they have a pitch. So each note that you play, or every chord in the music, when you hit a cymbal, you want that cymbal to sound like it's in key. But cheap cymbals don't. There's like a pitch that comes through and you just hear it and it can make the music sound off. I don't know. I think that nice cymbals always just sound like they're in tune with the music. That's the first thing about nice cymbals. The second thing about nice cymbals, more expensive cymbals, is that they last longer. So you might spend more to start off with, but I mean, some of these cymbals I'll show you in a minute, I've had for years, and I repair them a bit, and sometimes you do a little repair and then it'll go another 6 months before you have to do anything else, and they last years. I mean, literally years and years and years, whereas cheap cymbals, they just break and they're really hard to repair. So cheap cymbals are harder, literally harder, and to cut out the little nicks and bits in them, it just is a pain in the arse. It just takes ages. That's another thing. I don't know, all around I would say get the best possible cymbals you can. It's worth it in every regard. But sort of rule number 2, don't buy them new. Never buy new cymbals. I've only ever bought one new cymbal and I ended up selling it because I didn't like it. I think I spent, this was back in the day, and I spent about 300 quid on a Sabian ride cymbal, and it just was not the right cymbal. It was really bright sounding, would have been amazing in, you know, a jazz band or something. Wasn't right for me, and I sold on the second-hand market and realised that that was the way to buy cymbals. So go on eBay. And so you might get a cheap cymbal off Temu or wherever it is for 50, 60 quid. You go on eBay, you can get a Sabian AA or whatever brand you like, you know, a top of the range cymbal, probably for 80 or 90 quid. And it's just going to be so much better and last so much longer. So I'm sorry to any of the manufacturers who might be watching. I should probably be sweetening them because I'd love to get an endorsement from Sabian or something. But yeah, I would say don't buy them new. Get them secondhand, even if you see one that's got a tiny crack in it or some little, you know, something slightly wrong with it, it's probably still better to do that than buy them new. And I guess another thing, rule number 3, is practice and learn how to play cymbals well. If you hit cymbals the wrong way, they break quicker. And in the heat of a gig and recording, you can, you know, get off on one and you start bashing away. You haven't like made sure you tightened the screws right. They're flapping around. You hit them sideways, and if you're hitting straight towards the center of the cymbal all the time in a straight line, it's gonna be aggressively, you know, punishing the cymbal. All cymbal strokes should be glancing the cymbal, and it doesn't damage them. It's worth practicing, you know, the quick grabs and bits and bobs. Part of your practice routine should be like, yeah, just clean cymbal playing, because the quicker you glance across them, the better the sound that comes out of the cymbal as well. It's quite important. Yeah, I watch people playing live and I just think, oh God, you know, and they've already got cracks in their cymbals and they're just hammering away. And the other thing about cymbals actually is if you hit them harder, it's like an engine or something where you get to 80% and it's like the perfect amount. But if you get above, you know, you get above 90 miles an hour in your car and actually it starts using all the energy and you're not getting much out of it, and you get to a point where if you're really hitting the cymbals hard, they're not sounding better, they're probably not that much louder, you're just destroying them. But yeah, just check them as well, you know, when all the band, you know, your rehearsals and what have you, just band talking about whatever bullshit, and just, you know, spin your cymbals around, just check them. And rule number 4 coming up is, if you see any mark, any little crack, even if it's a millimetre that you haven't noticed before in a rehearsal or after rehearsal, even during a gig, you know, clock it. Don't play that cymbal anymore until you've fixed it, because once there's a crack, every time you hit it, it's damaging it more and more and more and more. And you just repair it. I'll talk a bit about the repair in a minute. Then it stops being a problem. You can play it again, but don't play damaged cymbals. Madness, absolute madness. I guess if you're in the middle of a gig and you happen to notice it, although I can't imagine I'd notice, you know, unless something was drastic in the middle of a gig. But if you do, at least try and avoid hitting that part of the cymbal, because once there's a crack in a cymbal, then they go very quickly. So yeah, like, buy good cymbals, look after your cymbals, learn how to play and play them right so that you're treating them well as you play them. Get good cases, you know, because a full set of cymbals, even if you buy it secondhand, is probably an investment of nearly £1,000, maybe, you know, at least £500. But if you look after them, they last years. So I might turn the camera around and show you some of my cymbals, and you'll see the weird way that I repair them, and I'll talk a bit about that in a minute. But yeah, they're on the floor. All right, we'll go from worst to best. So this one here is quite old cymbal. I think I've had this for about 10 years, and this is actually the worst condition cymbal that I currently have. And when this happens, unfortunately, there is not a lot more that can be done. I'll probably use it a bit more in rehearsals and just for practice. It doesn't make much of a good sound, but there's actually not really any damage around the outside. Funnily, this one just went, I presume you can see that okay. Just kind of went there. Still usable for practice, but not much more than that. Right, this next one, I actually found this because I, up until recently, practiced at home on an electric drum kit, but recently I've been doing all my drum practice in this room, and I don't want to ruin my nice cymbals, so I've been digging out some older ones I had in the loft, and I found one, and it had a chunk taken out of it. Maybe I can show you a picture of that. And I repaired this. So a cymbal like this is absolutely usable for practice, but you got to be a bit careful because it can ruin your sticks if you hit around this. But it's still absolutely usable for practice. That's I don't know, it's probably 10, 12 years old, this cymbal. Used it to death, but it's still perfectly good for practice. But I wouldn't use it at a gig or anything serious, but for practice would. This crash is, okay, so you start to see the way that I fix up my cymbals is with these little sort of shark's teeth fixes. So this one has been fixed up loads, you can see it. Actually, it still sounds really nice, this cymbal. It's totally playable. Again, it can eat your sticks, so I find myself thinking a bit too much about trying to avoid the dinks when I'm playing it, but totally good for practice. You know, no point throwing it away, and it's still, I don't have to, you know, it looks like I have to repair it all the time, but again, it's probably 10 years old, this cymbal, and you know, little by little, I just fix each one up. Still sounds great though. This one, still got some marks in it, but not too much. This, I'd play this at a gig, no problem. Probably wouldn't record with it, but still sounds great. So that's a range of crashes from just practice through to rehearsal kind of thing. And then up, just because I'm recording, I've got my nice cymbals up here. You can look at some of the things that I've got. So the one that I had to fix up that I mentioned was this one. I thought that this was in perfect condition, but I had to do that repair. That one is in perfect condition. This one sounds great. I think it's got one little mark in it, one little blemish. But again, I haven't actually bought any new cymbals, I don't think, for probably about 3 years at this point. So that's the thing, buy good cymbals and they do last. My china, I think, is probably going to be the next one I do need to replace, because I've only got one china and that has now got quite a tooth missing. This is a stack that's made with 2 old knackered cymbals. This sounds absolutely great though. Really nice sound. Probably sounds horrible through my phone speaker. But yeah. So this splash here, this is quite a cool one. This was given to me years and years ago. It had some keyholing in the middle, and I've actually stuck a Lego wheel into it. I don't know if you can make that out, but it works absolutely perfectly. Still sounds great, and it's a little trick for when you have keyholing. You can cut them out and stick something like a little rubber Lego wheel. Actually hit the bottom one there. And then I've got a nice, perfect condition splash. Hello again, my face. So you get the idea. I've probably spent, I don't know, maybe £1,000 in the last 15 years buying second-hand cymbals. But I've always bought really nice ones, and I just work them from, you know, in the hopefully very good condition when I buy them second-hand, right the way through to just something that I can practice with. And, you know, they sound great. I would get through so many more. I should say, back in the day, I did buy some cheaper cymbals when I had less money and so on. And, you know, they just don't last. They're absolute pain to try and repair, and when you do repair them, they just break again. So yeah, enough said, really. I think you get the idea. But the method that I use, oh, there's another drum I started playing, I can hear. The method I use for fixing them, my dad showed me how to do when I bought my first drum kit, and I was a teenager, and we went to, I think it was Chiswick, to pick up a pretty shitty first drum kit. It was just the shell set, and agreed to buy the kit. I think it was like 150 quid or something. And just in the door, there was a Sabian AA cymbal, which had a crack in it. And the lady that I was buying the kit off said, oh, you can have the cymbal if you want. And I, at the time, thought, it's broken, what's the point? But my dad said, oh yeah, we'll take that, we can fix that up. And I think that afternoon we went home, and he got his drill out, got a sanding pad out, and ground it away. And I actually used that cymbal. It was a nice AA Sabian. And that's probably why I use Sabian as well, because I got that was my first sort of cymbal. And I sort of stuck with them for forever after, for whatever reason. But that lasted me years. I don't know, I was using that for 10 or 15 years, long gone now. But so I think I've got some video. I sort of one-handed took a video as I was fixing one the other day, and I was trying not to injure myself at the same time. But I'll finish the video off with some pictures of the repair process as I do it. But I hope that was useful. I hope there's some interesting things in there. I'm sure I'm a boring man. I could carry on talking about cymbals for a long time, but they make the sound of a drum kit as far as I'm concerned. So buy good, treat them well, and enjoy them. If you like this, give us a subscribe. If you know any drummers that might be in any way interested, share it with them. Otherwise, till the next one, take it easy.